This garden has been part of my nan's life for 34 years. She has loved and cared for every inch and corner longer than I've even been alive. Even though she'll be moving away, hopefully this way she can take a little piece of it with her.
Welcome to Nan's Garden, the Devlog. Picture me, deep in the dirty canal waters.
Welcome to sunny Gorsley, sunny acre, my nan's place.
My nan's sadly going to have to move house, so we thought we'd take a bunch of nice photos and then try and recreate it a little bit in the game, so we'll immortalize Nan's garden. So that's what we're doing. I think what I'm seeing when I'm walking around is probably one of the lock levels for the game. So I think the way that we come in from this road here, I could turn into the actual canal entrance and the lock bit that goes up and down. And then I think what we'll do is we'll just have a nice garden attached to the side of it that the player can go and like rummage around. And then as we sort of would come up the stairs or whatever, we'll do our shop where you get your, roguelike items, things like that. And to be honest, it'll just be one of our cozy spots for the game and just a nice place to remember and do something nice for my nan. So the mission is take lots of reference photos because we love reference. It makes things so much easier. And then I'm going to sit down, make a whole bunch of stuff, and we're going to probably spoof through that on camera for you now.
First thing I did was pop on into Paint. I'll get a rough sketch done, something to map out what goes where, just a quick mental blueprint. From that sketch, I start whiteboxing out the level, blocking out with placeholder shapes just to get the general areas locked in. I actually blue-peated this bit a little bit. I copy and paste one of our existing levels, that way I can start with a toolkit of meshes and things like that. I lay out the driveway, which in this case is actually our waterway, and then I move on to throwing some more placeholder objects in, just to get a feel for the shape and the scale. Once I've got a draft in, I find it quite good to run the character around and just get a vibe for things. If something feels off, maybe it's too cramped, too wide, I can just go back in and adjust it at this stage quite easily. I'm also using the basic shapes that Unreal Engine provides. That way I don't have to guess what a circle is and it'll keep things nice and clean. Next up, heights. Let's get some of that verticality in. I'm using the stair blueprint that we use in all our other levels. This way ensure we've got all of our heights exactly the same. It gives us some good consistency and that we know everything works with our existing camera viewpoints. The wheelbarrows are pretty cool, so we're going to include those. I'm just going to block out this archway as well, make sure we're getting the space right. Then I take a look from a different perspective and make sure it's all lining up with what I've got in my head. With the layout locked in, I jumped on to the flowers. I grabbed a bunch of Josh's photos, tossed them into Blender, and set up a texture plan. Just a rough colour block showing how much space each flower would get on the sheet. That plan didn't really last long. I realised I could actually cram way more in, and that's a big win. Almost all the flowers now actually sit on a single 1024 texture. I painted them all at 2K, then scaled them down in Engine. That way, if we ever do need any close-ups that are higher res, we've got it ready to go. So big performance savings, no quality drop, fantastic. So I'm painting away and I'm grabbing the colour directly from the reference photos. I'm just putting down some rough shapes at this point, patches where there might be shadow or highlights. The benefit of the camera being quite far away is that I can do rough shapes with just a bit of gradient or a bit of speckled colour. And that tends to be enough for it to look really good in the game. So even though the texture sheet isn't exactly a work of art, the magic does come together once you put it in Engine. Things like the lighting, giving it some good shadows, and post-processing all lifting it up together, making it really pop. Now the flowers are all painted, I'm going to pull them into Blender and start slicing things up. From there, it's a slow process. Pushing and pulling shapes, adding loops where I need to, cutting some loops out where I can, wrapping them up into shapes that hopefully look like flowers. The idea behind the greenery is a little bit different. I want to keep it sort of lean and simple. I've used 2 or 3 leaf types in total. That way I can reuse assets and save texture memory. I literally found a patch of gradient on a leaf and I stole that, stretched it out into the stems and, called it done. Alongside that, I'm building some supporting plants, some small leafy clusters, a narrow tower-like plant. I made a big bushy one with like a highlighted edge. These are much less colourful on purpose. They're sort of acting like our negative space. This helps our brighter flowers like pop even more against them, and they match in with our analogous palette. Another thing I'm doing here to sort of emphasize that background element of the plants is adding these black spots. I first did it by hand, but that didn't really work, so I grabbed it from some of our existing Photoshop files It lets them fade into the background a bit more. And again, it really just helps us emphasize those bright colors and those flowers we want to catch your eye.
Well, the garden blossoms, our resident gnome has a small request, which translates to, please hit that subscribe button, please.
Next up, I want to focus on some of the key features. One piece of this garden that sort of really stands out to me is that my Nan has these unique steps that lead you straight into her garden. I find them really visually interesting, so we're going to start with that. I already had the space marked out for them, so what I did is I blocked it out with this simple cube, nailing the proportions before I worried about any detail on the actual mesh. I borrowed a few bits from the existing environment, pillars and trims and things like that to save some time. It also guarantees that the textures are going to match and we're going to keep up that color palette and that consistency. One of the assets I sort of stole off myself with these roof tiles. With a quick adjustment, I managed to make them suit exactly what I had in my mind. I then did screw up a little bit because I retextured them, but then managed to use the untextured version and lay out all of the steps. So that was a good waste of half an hour. But Blender does have a really cool copy-paste UV feature, so that saved me. Honestly, I think these buttons turned out pretty great. I think they really capture the spirit of the original. So that's number one done. The next thing to catch my eye was the sundial that was hidden away in the gazebo. I wanted this to be a bit of a showpiece in the garden, something to really pull the eye. After having a little look at it in the engine, I realized it needed some sort of deformation, make it a bit more interesting. So I tossed it back into Blender. Using the Lattice modifier, I sort of twist and warped the form, giving it more playful, stylized look. Just generally trying to match our sort of quirky style for the game. Anyway, here's the result. I think I might come back for this one. There's a few nice wooden structures that sort of help define the shape and separate the different spaces of the garden, so they're definitely coming into the key features. I started out with these garden plots. Maybe I could have just left the square ones that I already had in existing, but I think rounding out that area for the tree sort of highlighted it and gave it a more aesthetic appeal overall. We love saving time, so we are reusing that same asset. I'm just bending and warping the wooden bits that are already textured into the shape that I want and putting them back in. I'm just making out the different shapes that I need to define this space. We're doing timber, so let's do the gazebo. Guess what? I'm using the same pieces again. I'm rotating and twisting the timber pieces here into sort of different shapes. These sort of hatch timber areas that surround the gazebo, they ended up being useful fences as well, so they got plonked into different places. I'm quite excited at this point to see some of these flowers sort of spilling over these structures, and I think they're going to sell it. Next up, we look at these railings. These really stood out to me. You don't really see iron railings like this much anymore. I slap up a reference photo on my other screen, and using that, I can draw out the mesh. I'm adding lots of edge loops here to cut in some cylindrical shapes. I'll then just extrude those and make them solid. Mirrored those, then squidge some copies into the space that I have defined for them. After a quick unwrap, shading was pretty easy, and we were back into the engine. Having a little walk around again, just getting a vibe for things, I realized the scale was all off, so I had to squidge those down and move them around a little bit again. The railings worked out pretty well. They could have maybe been a bit more bendy and twisty to match our spooky style, but we are just trying to match what I saw in Nan's garden. Another visit to my Nan's yielded the fact that the tequila sunrise rose was actually her favourite flower. I actually took this time to make a couple more flowers, so boom boom boom. And we finally got into the best bit. Probably took me an hour or so to place them all. And here it is in about 30 seconds. Who doesn't love bees? We were just hanging out in the garden, chatting away, and spotted these little fluffy fellas doing their thing. The weight of them falling onto the lavender and sort of bringing the whole thing with it just really sort of made me chuckle. Some simple rigging and a bit of animation later, and I'll be the first to admit this was probably my favourite part of the project. Let me know what you think. My Nan is a classy lady, so let's give her a throne to sit on. They also have this bench. right at the top of the stairs where you'd actually just be able to sit and look out and enjoy the environment. This brought me right back to a project I worked on at university where a little alligator would just stop, sit on a bench and kick his feet. So why not? Let's put it in. So let's sit back, relax, and enjoy the results. This garden has been part of my nan's life for 34 years. She has loved and cared for every inch and corner longer than I've even been alive. Even though she'll be moving away, hopefully this way she can take a little piece of it with her. It's not the same as the real thing, but I do hope it'll live on forever inside of Apricity and bring joy to those who choose to visit.
That's all there.
You got me in tears.
What did you think?
Well, it's the improvement on the garden.
Compliment. But, yeah.
And the bee noise made me jump.
Yeah, did it?
I flinched.
Oh, right, okay.
I did.
I saw
Did
you
see?
react.
Yeah, I actually flinched.
Yeah.
Because
So,
I thought it was coming up.
yeah. Actually in
You've
the
got me
game.
in tears.
Yeah, it's okay. I wanted to do so nice place. It's
It's very good, Ben.
Wish list.